So first up, let's talk about Matt Cardona. So Matt Cardona has filed a trademark on his old name, Zack Ryder. And we all know what this is probably hinting at, right? I mean, obviously, we all know at this point what Matt Cardona is doing. I mean, unless we're just way off and Matt Cardona's starting a Zack Ryder brand energy drink or a Zack Ryder brand hair gel, more than likely this means we're getting Zack Ryder in the 2023 Royal Rumble. Surprise entrant. There you go. Mark it down. That's happening. There's honestly the timing of this. There's no other reason he does this, right? But, you got to ask yourself. The question you have to ask yourself about Matt Cardona or Zack Ryder, what are we going to call them? That's not the question, but what are we going to call him? Let's call him Zack Ryder. The question you got to ask about Zack Ryder is what value does he bring in WWE? Can he, has his status raised since he left? Or is he just still a jobber, still a guy who gets lost in the mid-card? It'll be interesting to see that if he makes a return, is he coming back for the long haul or is he coming back short term? I bet there's probably some value in bringing him back for a short-term run, but I don't foresee a long future for Zack Ryder in the WWE. I think that the success for Zack Ryder is staying as Matt Cardona and working the indie scenes. I think he's found his niche there. I think the crowd embraces him. I think he's become an indie darling, and I think that's where he lives, right? But when you talk about Zack Ryder, you have to talk about a guy that WWE absolutely dropped the ball with. Like Dolph Ziggler, Zack Ryder, R-Truth, some of those come to my mind when I talk about the biggest balls that were dropped within WWE. But when he was at the peak of doing his YouTube show, there was nobody bigger or nobody more over with the fans. He had the Internet Wrestling Championship. He was a fan favorite, but back in that time, WWE just refused to pull the trigger on him. So it's interesting. We'll see what happens. We'll see if, what do y'all guys think? Are we not getting a Zack Ryder appearance at the Royal Rumble this year? Next up, we have Devon Dudley announcing his departure from WWE. And this is going to sound like a little bit of an asshole, but this is a casual wrestling show, and I am a casual wrestling fan. I honestly didn't know that Devon Dudley still worked in the WWE. I can't recall coming across any type of documentation in all of my research on the dirt sheets and on the news websites. I never saw anything that referenced him as producing any matches in WWE or NXT. But that's me, right? Maybe I'm just a dumb casual fan. I'm guessing that his role was in NXT somewhere, but who knows? I don't know what he did. But what I do know is I'm sitting here right now with my popcorn, waiting for the IWC to start blaming the return of Vince McMahon for running off Devon Dudley and whoever else decides to leave the company in the next couple of weeks, because it's coming. It's coming. The IWC can't resist this type of thing. They are absolutely waiting for the opportunity to blame everything that happens in WWE on Vince McMahon in the upcoming weeks. And I'll be here for it. I'll watch it and I'll laugh. Like WWE was this beautiful, perfect company when Vince McMahon was gone. We'll see what happens. As we talked about briefly yesterday, Cody Rhodes has announced or was announced to be returning at the Royal Rumble this year. So any chance of a surprise was absolutely spoiled. And WrestleVotes.com reported today that WWE knew that everyone was expecting to see Cody Rhodes return at the Royal Rumble. Therefore, they chose not to have it be a surprise. And instead, they are saying that they're pleasantly pleased with the other surprises that they have. So why not just announce it? This I'll double down. This just supports my claims. You don't do this unless you have a bigger surprise. You don't do this unless you know you have a ace in your sleeve. You don't do this unless you know that you've got the big one. The big one that everybody's going to talk about. Because Cody, even if we all knew, we like the surprise. Don't get it twisted, WWE. Half the shit that's a surprise we probably know already, but we still like to pretend and overreact to how excited we are. But I think if they're willing to blow the Cody Rhodes load pre-Royal Rumble, there's got to be a Dwayne Johnson sighting. There's got to be electricity. There's got to be The Rock at the Royal Rumble. But I'm guessing that there's, based on the way that's worded, there's got to be a couple other tricks up the sleeves, right? It can't just be Dwayne. It can't, the only surprise at the Royal Rumble can't be The Rock. There has to be other things that are going to happen that are going to be exciting. Who do we think is going to be the big surprises this year? Is it Zack Ryder? Is that the big one that they're banking on? I tried to rack my brain. I don't know. This was a harder Royal Rumble for me to put my finger on the pulse on than normal. And, we'll get to this in a little bit. We'll do our Royal Rumble bracket predictions. But, I had a hard time. You guys tell me, who do you think are going to be the big surprises this year at the Royal Rumble? Vince McMahon just settled settled his lawsuit with former WWE referee Rita Chatterton after years of sexual assault allegations. It is reported that Chatterton settled for less than the $11 million she was demanding. Vince McMahon's lawyer shared with the Wall Street Journal after the settlement that Mr. McMahon denies and has always denied assaulting Mrs. Chatterton. He settled the case solely to avoid the cost of litigation. Man, I mean, that's a hard thing. Like, when you settle that, and I get that I'm not a business major, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know the ins and outs, but I do know that when you settle something, it usually means that you were a little bit worried about what could come from that situation. Now, more than likely, he's just trying to settle up any loose ends while he tries to sell the, tries to sell the company as we're being told he's doing. But you talk about storming back into the company. Like, Vince McMahon kicks in the fucking door, walks in the office, and just starts slanging around millions of dollars to fix whatever problems he has. It's like he came back and goes, they're not going to get me this time. I imagine it's got to be tough to sell a company to someone like Disney when your ex-employees are running around trying to sue you for sexual assault. Like, I get it. That's probably a problem. Last big story to talk about here. Tony Khan has addressed FTR's AEW status, saying he hopes to see FTR back in an AEW ring at some point. They need some time to recover from what was one of the most intense years of wrestling any team has ever done. The schedule that they went through, all of the different places they worked all over the world, won plenty of different championships. They won every championship. Yeah, Tony, they won every championship except the AEW Tag Team Championship, the one that you control. So I'm sure they're just chomping at the bits to come back and job out for your AEW Tag Team division. I'm sure they're chomping at the bits to come back and job for the Young Bucks, right? I'm sure they're chomping at the bits to come back and lose to the Acclaimed again, or lose to the Ass Boys again. Like, I imagine, I have to think that, Tony Khan, there has to be a little bit of smart ass involved in this, right? Like, he has to know he fumbled the ball with FTR. And I'm not a big FTR guy, but I think it's quite obvious that Tony Khan didn't know what he was doing when it came to having them, right? And I think that right now, that they're taking this break and they're probably sitting back and they're watching WWE right now, and they're seeing what Triple H does and how long he actually stays in control. I would like to believe that FTR is kind of monitoring the situation and seeing how involved Vince McMahon comes, because they don't want to do any more segments in the shower shaving each other's backs. That's not what they're looking to do. Maybe they work the indie scenes a little bit, but I think if Triple H stays in charge, there's a good possibility FTR returns back to the WWE. And if you look at the WWE Tag Team division right now, it's pretty stacked up, man. Like, it would be lots of fun to have FTR back and get involved with some of these new tag teams that we have. I think they could work. I think there's a lot of fun to be had. And I know I don't place FTR that high on the list of, like, where I rank tag teams. They're top 5 for sure, I think, right? Maybe I'll do a top 5 list here in the next week or two of tag teams, but I do understand the value that they have within a professional wrestling company. And I do understand their ability to make other tag teams look good. And I do understand the value that they have within the IWC. So, hopefully we see them back in WWE at some point.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Hey, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE, keep it rolling.